The Galactic Concord Assembly Hall was the largest structure ever built by intelligent life. It floated at the center of known space, a massive station made of crystal and metal that could hold millions of beings at once. Today, it held representatives from over 2,000 different species. They had come from every corner of the galaxy. They had come to witness history. Ambassador Vexaron of the Corvathi Dominion stood at the central platform. His body was covered in hard plates that clicked together when he moved. His eyes were black and cold, like the space between stars. He had waited his entire life for this moment. His father had waited. His grandfather had waited. For 900 years, the Corvathi had been planning this day. The chamber was filled with noise. Thousands of aliens talked and argued and made deals in the shadows. But when Vexaron raised his forearms, silence fell like a heavy blanket. "Fellow citizens of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying through translator devices to every ear and mind in the room. "For 900 years, we have lived under a lie. We have been told that peace is the highest goal. We have been told that cooperation is strength. We have been told these things by one species above all others." He paused and let the word hang in the air before he spoke it. "Humans." A murmur went through the crowd. In a small alcove near the back of the chamber, the human delegation sat quietly. There were only 12 of them. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat at their center. She was a tall woman with dark hair turning gray at the edges. Her face showed no emotion as she listened to Vexaron speak. "The humans came to us 9 centuries ago," Vexaron continued. "They were weak. They had no great fleets. They had no powerful weapons. They asked only to trade, to share, to learn. And we, in our foolishness, welcomed them." He slammed one of his armored fists against the podium. "Look at them now. They have spread to 1,000 worlds. They have built stations and colonies in every sector. Their technology runs through our ships, our cities, our very bodies. And still, they have no military. Still, they build no warships. They smile and trade and pretend to be our friends." The Corvathi ambassador turned to face the human delegation directly. "But we see the truth. We see a species that has wrapped its fingers around the throat of the galaxy while pretending to offer a handshake. We see a species that grows fat on our trade while offering nothing but pretty words in return. We see a parasite." Elena Vasquez raised one eyebrow slightly but said nothing. Vexaron turned back to the assembly. "The Corvathi Dominion has spent 50 years building a coalition. 47 species have joined us. 47 species have agreed that humanity must be stopped before they grow too powerful. Before it is too late." He pressed a button on his podium, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed a massive fleet of warships. Thousands upon thousands of vessels, bristling with weapons, arranged in perfect formation. 14,000 warships, Vexaron announced proudly. The largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Enough firepower to crack planets. Enough soldiers to occupy 100 worlds. The chamber erupted in cheers from the coalition species. The Thessian delegates, insect-like creatures with compound eyes, clicked their approval. The Drakari warriors, massive reptilian beings covered in scales, roared and beat their chests. Even species that had not joined the coalition watched with hungry interest. "The humans are hereby declared enemies of galactic civilization," Vexaron proclaimed, his voice rising above the noise. "Their worlds will burn. Their colonies will fall. Their species will be scattered to the void. The 900-year peace ends now." The cheering became deafening. Aliens of every shape and size celebrated the coming war. They imagined human worlds in flames. They imagined human slaves working in their mines. They imagined the wealth and resources they would take from the fallen species. But in the human alcove, something strange happened. Ambassador Elena Vasquez laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was not the desperate sound of someone trying to hide their fear. It was a deep, genuine laugh that came from her belly. She laughed the way a grandmother laughs when a small child threatens to fight her. She laughed with pity and amusement and something else that the aliens could not quite understand. The cheering began to die down. Species near the human delegation turned to stare. The laugh spread through the chamber like ripples in water, carried by confused whispers. Even Vexaron fell silent, his plates clicking in confusion. "Ambassador Vasquez," he finally said, his voice cold. "Do you find your species' extinction amusing?" Elena wiped a tear from her eye. She was still smiling as she stood up from her seat. Her fellow human delegates remained calm, some of them hiding small smiles of their own. "I apologize, Supreme Commander," Elena said, though her voice carried no real apology. "It's just, I had hoped this day would never come. We all did. We've worked so hard for 900 years to prevent exactly this situation." "Your tricks will not save you," Vexaron snarled. "You have no fleet. You have no weapons. Your peaceful ways have left you defenseless." "Yes," Elena agreed, nodding slowly. "That's what it looks like, isn't it?" Something in her tone made Vexaron's plates pull tight against his body. It was an instinct from deep in his species' evolution. It was the feeling of a predator realizing it had made a terrible mistake. "What do you mean, human?" Elena stepped forward, out of the alcove, into the main chamber. Every eye in the room turned to follow her. She moved with no fear, no hurry, no concern for the thousands of hostile aliens surrounding her. "Supreme Commander, may I ask you a question?" Vexaron hesitated, then nodded. "Your flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. What powers its engines?" The Korvathi frowned. "A quantum fusion reactor, standard technology for human design," Elena interrupted gently. "Licensed from the Chen Corporation on Earth 300 years ago." "And your weapons systems?" "Plasma cannons and missile batteries, using targeting computers based on human neural network architecture." "And your life support? Your food synthesizers? Your medical bays?" Vexaron said nothing. His plates had gone very still. "All human designs," Elena continued. "All gifts we gave freely to the galaxy. We asked for nothing in return except peace and trade. We never built warships because we never needed them." She turned to address the entire assembly. 900 years ago, when humanity first entered the galactic community, we saw something that terrified us. We saw thousands of species locked in endless cycles of war, rising, fighting, falling, over and over again, through millions of years of history. We were small. We were weak. We knew that if we tried to play the same game, we would lose. Her voice carried through the silent chamber. So we chose a different path. We made ourselves useful. We made ourselves helpful. We gave you better technology than you had ever seen, and we asked only for friendship in return. We became the foundation upon which modern galactic civilization was built. She smiled at Vexaron, and there was no warmth in it. Every piece of human technology contains certain features. Security measures, you might call them. Dormant protocols that respond to a single signal. A signal we have never had reason to send in 900 years of peace. The chamber had become deathly quiet. "We don't build warships, Supreme Commander, because we don't need them. Why build weapons when every ship in your fleet already belongs to us? Why train soldiers when your own technology can turn against you at our command?" Vexaron's voice came out as barely a whisper. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Elena tilted her head. "There's an easy way to find out. Give the order. Start your war. Attack Earth. See what happens." For a long moment, no one moved. No one spoke. The weight of Elena's words pressed down on the assembly like gravity from a dying star. Then Vexaran laughed. It was a harsh, clicking sound, full of forced confidence. You think pretty words will save you? You think threats without proof will make us turn back? He raised his arm to signal his admirals. The attack begins in 6 hours. Enjoy your final moments of peace, Ambassador. They will be your last. Elena nodded slowly, as if she had expected nothing else. Very well, Supreme Commander. We gave you a chance. We always give a chance. She turned and began walking back to her delegation. 6 hours. I suppose that gives me time for a nice meal and a nap. She paused at the entrance to her alcove and looked back over her shoulder. Oh, and Supreme Commander, when your ships stop working, when your weapons go silent, when you realize just how badly you've miscalculated, remember that we tried to warn you. Remember that we gave you every opportunity to choose peace. Her smile was sad now, almost pitying. You could have been our friends. You still could be, even after this. That's always been the human way. But first you're going to learn something important. And what is that? Vexaran demanded. Elena Vasquez stepped into the shadows of her alcove, her voice floating back like a ghost. You're going to learn why we've been laughing. The assembly exploded into chaos. Some species screamed for human blood. Others suddenly looked at their own technology with new and terrified eyes. The coalition admirals rushed to contact their fleets. The neutral species began making quiet plans to evacuate their delegations. And in the human alcove, 12 ambassadors sat calmly and waited for the galaxy to learn its lesson. The 900-year peace was over. But the war would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever imagined. 3 weeks had passed since the declaration of war. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the observation deck of the civilian station Harvest Moon, watching the darkness of space. He was an old man now, nearly 90 years old, though modern medicine kept him strong and sharp. He had served humanity his entire life, first as a diplomat, then as what passed for a military commander in a species that had no military. Through the transparent walls of the observation deck, he could see the coalition armada. 14,000 warships hung at the edge of Earth's solar system like a wall of death. They stretched across space in every direction, blocking out the stars. Their weapons glowed with barely contained energy. Their engines hummed with power that could be felt even at this distance. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Enough firepower to destroy every planet in the solar system 10 times over. Lieutenant Amara Okonkwo stood beside the admiral, her young face pale with fear. She had joined the Human Defense Coordination Office only 2 years ago, expecting a quiet career of paperwork and diplomatic missions. Now she was looking at the end of her species. Sir, she said, her voice shaking slightly, our defense forces consist of 12 patrol vessels and 1 customs frigate. We have no weapons capable of damaging those ships. We have no shields that can stop their attacks. Admiral Chen nodded calmly. Shouldn't we be evacuating? Shouldn't we be doing something? The admiral turned to look at her. His eyes were kind, but held something she couldn't quite understand. It was the same look she had seen on Ambassador Vasquez's face in the recordings from the assembly. It was the look of someone who knew a secret. Lieutenant, do you know why humanity has no military? Because we're peaceful, she answered automatically. Because we chose trade over war. No, Chen shook his head. That's what we tell the galaxy. That's even what most humans believe. But it's not the real reason. He turned back to the window and the waiting fleet. 900 years ago, our ancestors looked at the universe and made a calculation. They realized that no matter how many ships we built, no matter how many soldiers we trained, there would always be someone bigger and stronger. The galaxy had thousands of species with millions of years of experience in warfare. We could never win a conventional war. So they gave up? Okonkwo asked. No. They got creative. Chen smiled. They asked themselves a simple question. What if the best weapon isn't a weapon at all? What if the best defense isn't defense at all? He gestured at the massive fleet outside. Every single one of those ships is powered by technology that humans designed. Their reactors, their computers, their life support systems, their targeting arrays, all of it flows from human patents, human research, human gifts. For 9 centuries, we made ourselves the galaxy's most generous technology suppliers. We asked for nothing but peace and fair trade. But that just means they have our technology, Okonkwo said, confused. That doesn't help us. Doesn't it? Chen's smile widened. Tell me, Lieutenant, when you buy a device from a store, do you read every line of the programming code? Do you examine every circuit and every chip? Do you truly understand everything that device can do? Understanding began to dawn on Okonkwo's face. Every piece of human technology, Chen continued, contains certain features that are not advertised. Not viruses. We would never harm innocent civilians. Not weapons. That would make us no better than conquerors. Just options, possibilities, protocols that lie dormant unless a very specific signal is sent. You're saying we can control their ships? I'm saying their ships will stop being ships if we ask them to. Chen's voice was gentle. Their weapons will forget how to fire. Their engines will forget how to move. Their life support will forget how to support life, though we'll give them enough time to put on emergency suits. We're not murderers. Lieutenant Okonkwo stared at the Admiral with new eyes. Everything she thought she knew about her species was shifting, rearranging itself into a different picture. Why doesn't anyone know about this? Some people know, the senior leadership, certain engineers and programmers, but we've kept it quiet because the moment the galaxy learns our secret, they'll start trying to remove our technology. They'll try to build their own systems from scratch, and that would take away our protection. 900 years, Okonkwo whispered. You've kept this secret for 900 years. 23 generations of humans have carried this burden, each one hoping they would never have to use it, each one passing it down to the next, with the prayer that peace would last forever. Chen sighed. But we always knew this day might come. We always prepared for the worst, while hoping for the best. And now, he looked at the fleet with something almost like sadness. Now the children must learn that their parents' gifts came with strings attached. Across human space, similar conversations were happening. On the colony world of New Shanghai, a mother tucked her children into bed. They had seen the news. They knew the alien fleet was coming. They were scared. Mama, are the bad aliens going to hurt us? The mother smiled and stroked her daughter's hair. No, sweetheart. The grown-ups have this handled. Nothing bad is going to happen. Promise? I promise. And she meant it, because her own mother had told her the same thing 20 years ago during a different crisis. And her grandmother had told her mother the same thing 60 years before that. The promise passed down through generations, always true, always kept. On the agricultural world of Harvest Prime, farmers looked up at the sky, where distant lights marked the positions of warships. They felt no fear. They simply checked their equipment, fed their animals, and went to bed at the normal time. There was planting to do tomorrow, war or no war. On the station Einstein's Dream, scientists continued their research into new theories of physics. They joked about the invasion over lunch. Someone made a betting pool about how long it would take for the coalition to surrender. The most popular guess was less than 1 hour. The galaxy had never seen anything like this. A species facing extinction should panic. They should flee. They should beg for mercy or fight with desperate fury. Humans did none of these things. They simply waited. Meanwhile, Aboard the Coalition flagship, Dominion's Wrath, Supreme Commander Vexeron studied reports from his intelligence officers. They were confusing reports, disturbing reports. "There is no evacuation," his chief spy told him. "Human civilians are going about their normal lives. Their leader gave a speech yesterday about the importance of maintaining agricultural schedules." "They're in shock," Vexeron decided. "They've accepted their fate." "Perhaps, but our sensors have detected strange signals passing between human stations, encrypted communications we cannot decode, massive data transfers to and from their homeworld, preparing their final records, preserving their history before the end." Vexeron waved a dismissive hand. "It doesn't matter. In 3 days, we begin the assault. Nothing they do can change that." But deep in the bowels of the Coalition fleet, something was already happening. Tiny probes drifted between the warships. They were smaller than dust particles, invisible to even the most advanced sensors. They had been released from human trading vessels months ago, before the war was even declared. Now they floated through the fleet, watching, listening, recording. Every tactical discussion was monitored. Every system weakness was noted. Every crew member was cataloged. The probes sent their information back to Earth in bursts of quantum-encrypted data that the Coalition's technology couldn't even detect, let alone decrypt. Because that technology was also human-designed. On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of what was once called Switzerland, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the data flow across her screens. She was 112 years old, kept alive by the same nanite technology that flowed through the veins of half the galaxy. She had designed that technology herself 70 years ago. She had also designed the tiny invisible shutdown commands hidden in every nanite's code. "Status report," she said to her team of engineers. "All probes are in position. We have complete coverage of the enemy fleet." "System integration?" 100%. Every Coalition ship is running on compromised technology. They didn't even think to check. Why would they? Humans are peaceful. Humans don't fight wars. Humans would never dream of sabotage. Sarah smiled, and it was the same smile that Elena Vasquez had worn in the assembly. The same smile that Admiral Chen wore on his observation deck. The smile of humanity, patient and prepared. How long until they attack? 3 days, according to their communications. Then we wait 3 days. Sarah leaned back in her chair. Let them feel confident. Let them feel certain of their victory. And when they give the order to fire, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Above the bunker, above the mountains, above the clouds, the Coalition fleet hung in space like a promise of death. 14,000 warships, millions of soldiers, weapons that could crack planets. And deep within each ship, hidden in the code of every system, human programming waited for its signal. The calm before the storm. But nobody in the Coalition understood that they were not the storm. They were the ones standing in its path. In her quarters aboard a diplomatic vessel speeding toward neutral space, Ambassador Elena Vasquez received a message from Admiral Chen. "Everything is ready," it read. "Whenever you give the word." She typed back a single sentence. "Let them throw the first punch. The galaxy needs to see who started this." Then she poured herself a glass of wine and watched the stars slide by outside her window. Somewhere out there, an armada was preparing to destroy her species. Somewhere out there, 14,000 captains were dreaming of the glory they would win. Elena raised her glass in a silent toast to them. "You poor fools," she whispered to the darkness. "You have no idea what you've done." The wine was excellent. A vintage from the vineyards of Mars, grown in soil that humans had made fertile through centuries of patient work. That was humanity's way. Patient work, long-term thinking, building things that lasted. Like trust, like dependency, like the invisible chains that now wrapped around every ship in the coalition fleet, waiting to pull tight. 3 days until the attack. 3 days until the galaxy changed forever. Elena finished her wine, sent a message to her family, telling them she loved them, and went to sleep. She would need her rest. The lessons were about to begin. The day of the attack arrived, with ceremony and celebration. Aboard the Dominion's Wrath, Supreme Commander Vexaron stood on his command bridge, surrounded by his most trusted officers. Holographic screens showed views from across the fleet. 14,000 warships in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready, their crews eager for battle. "Today we make history," Vexaron announced to his bridge crew. His voice was broadcast to every ship in the Armada. "Today we eliminate the human threat forever. Today we prove that the Korvathi Dominion and our coalition allies are the true masters of this galaxy." Cheers echoed through the fleet. Soldiers roared their battle cries. Weapons officers ran final checks on their targeting systems. On the bridge's main screen, Earth hung in the distance, a small blue marble, fragile and undefended. Around it, a handful of civilian stations and tiny patrol vessels were all that stood between humanity and destruction. "Pathetic," one of Vexaron's officers muttered. "They're not even trying to fight." "They can't fight," Vexaron replied with satisfaction. 900 years of peace have made them soft. They forgot that the universe belongs to the strong. He raised his armored fist. "All ships, begin the assault. Let their homeworld burn." 14,000 warship commanders relayed the order. Weapons officers pressed firing controls. Engine crews pushed power to maximum. And nothing happened. Vexaron stared at his tactical display in confusion. The fleet should be surging forward by now. Plasma bolts should be streaking toward Earth. Instead, the ships hung motionless in space. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Why aren't we firing?" His weapons officer was frantically checking her console. "The targeting systems aren't responding, Commander. I'm giving the fire command, but the weapons refuse to charge." "Engine room," Vexaron barked into the communication system. "Why aren't we moving?" Static answered him for a long moment. Then a panicked voice came through. "Commander, the engines just shut down. They went into some kind of maintenance mode. We can't restart them." Across the fleet, chaos was spreading. Ships drifted aimlessly as their engines died. Weapons went cold. Navigation computers displayed nothing but error messages. Life support systems began making strange sounds, though they continued to function, for now. "Commander," another officer's voice was high with fear. "Shields are offline. We're completely defenseless." Vexaron's plates clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "How is this possible? Our systems were inspected before we left." "There was no sabotage." "Sir, look." Every screen on the bridge flickered. The tactical displays, the communication systems, the status monitors, all of them went dark for a moment. Then a face appeared. It was an elderly human woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She smiled gently at the camera, as if she were greeting old friends rather than addressing an enemy armada. "Hello, friends," she said. Her voice was warm and soft. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I am humanity's Chief Technology Coordinator. I'm sorry for the confusion you must be experiencing right now." Vexaron stared at the screen. Around him, his officers had gone completely still. "You see," Dr. Chen continued, "those engines you're using, humans designed them. We gave you the blueprints 300 years ago as a gift of peace. Your weapon systems, those targeting computers use neural network architecture that we developed in our laboratories. Your life support, your food synthesizers, your medical equipment, your communication arrays, all of it flows from human technology that we shared freely with the galaxy." She folded her hands in front of her, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. For 900 years, you believed you were receiving generous gifts from a peaceful species, and you were. Every technology we gave you was exactly what we promised. Better engines, better computers, better medicine. We never lied about what our gifts could do. Her smile remained gentle, but something changed in her eyes. We simply didn't mention everything they could do. She pressed something outside the camera's view. Across the Coalition fleet, ships began to move. Not under their own power, their engines were still dead. Instead, maneuvering thrusters fired seemingly at random, spinning vessels in slow circles. Lights flickered on and off. And on some ships, weapon systems came back online, but their targets were other Coalition vessels. "No!" Vexaron screamed. "Override! Emergency override!" "There is no override," Dr. Chen said calmly. "Your emergency systems use human-designed chips. Your backup computers run human-designed software. Your manual controls are connected to human-designed circuits. For 900 years, we have been the foundation upon which galactic civilization was built." On the main screen, Vexaron watched in horror as two Thessian cruisers opened fire on each other. Their crews had no control. Their weapons chose their own targets. "We're not going to destroy your fleet," Dr. Chen continued. "We could. Please understand that. Every ship you brought here could be turned into a tomb within seconds. Life support failure. Airlock malfunction. Reactor overload. We have complete control." She shook her head slowly. "But we're not murderers. We never wanted this war. We never wanted to reveal our secret. For 900 years, we hoped that the peace would last forever, that we would never need to use the tools we had so carefully prepared." Her voice grew sad. "You forced us to do this. You gathered your fleet. You declared your war. You refused every offer of peace. And now, you must understand the truth." The screen split to show images from across the galaxy. The Korvathi homeworld, where massive atmospheric processors were displaying error messages. The Thessian hive, where the Queen's medical implants were broadcasting her thoughts to anyone who cared to listen. The Drakari clans, where proud warriors found their ceremonial armor locked in civilian safety mode, unable to even close their fists. "This isn't just your fleet," Dr. Chen explained. "This is everything. Every world that ever accepted human technology, which is every world in the Coalition, is now experiencing similar difficulties. Farms are having trouble with their automated systems. Hospitals are asking for software updates. Power plants are entering unexpected maintenance cycles." She leaned closer to the camera. "We're not going to hurt anyone. The systems that keep people alive will continue to function. But everything else, your weapons, your ships, your military infrastructure, all of it belongs to us now. It always belonged to us. You simply never knew." Vexaron found his voice. "This is a trick, some kind of electronic attack. We'll find a way to counter it." "With what?" Dr. Chen asked gently. "Your diagnostic tools are human technology. Your repair systems use human components. Your engineering databases are stored on human-designed memory crystals. There is nothing in your civilization that we cannot reach." She spread her hands. "I want you to understand something, Commander. We didn't do this because we hate you. We did this because 900 years ago we looked at a galaxy full of war and death and endless cycles of destruction, and we decided there had to be a better way." "What way?" Vexaron demanded. "Domination? Control? Making everyone dependent on you?" "Yes," Dr. Chen admitted. "That's exactly what we did. We made ourselves essential. We made sure that if anyone ever tried to destroy us, they would discover that destroying us meant destroying themselves. It wasn't noble. It wasn't pure. But it worked." She pointed at the camera. "For 900 years, there has been no major war in this galaxy. 900 years of peace, the longest period of stability in recorded galactic history. Species that used to fight each other every decade learned to trade instead." Planets that used to be battlefields became garden worlds. Trillions of beings lived full lives who would have died in wars that never happened. Her voice hardened. We sacrifice our innocence so that the galaxy could have peace. We became manipulators, deceivers, builders of invisible chains. And we would do it again without hesitation, because the alternative was watching civilization burn itself to ashes over and over until nothing was left. Vexaron wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. He looked around his bridge at his officers, who stood frozen at useless consoles. He looked at the tactical display, showing his mighty fleet drifting helplessly in space. He looked at his own hands, covered in armor that suddenly felt like a prison. "What happens now?" he finally asked. Dr. Chen smiled, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. "Now you have a choice. You can continue this war. Try to find some way to fight us, some technology we don't control. You might even succeed, in a few decades, if you're willing to sacrifice everything and start from nothing. Build your own ships from raw materials. Design your own computers without any human influence. Live like primitives for a generation until you can create something truly independent." She paused. "Or you can accept that the war is over. You can withdraw your fleet. You can sign treaties promising peace. You can go home to your families and tell them that humanity proved to be more dangerous than anyone imagined, but also more merciful." The screen flickered, showing the coalition fleet one more time. Ships still drifted aimlessly. A few had collided with each other, minor impacts that caused no serious damage. The mighty armada looked like a collection of children's toys abandoned in a bathtub. "We're releasing control of your navigation systems now, Doctor. What is successful?" Chen said. "You can fly home whenever you're ready. Your weapons will remain offline until we're sure you're no longer a threat. Your governments will receive our terms for peace within the hour." She rose from her seat, ready to end the transmission. "Oh, and Commander Vexaron, please tell the galaxy something for me." "What?" Dr. Chen smiled one last time. "Tell them that humanity is still willing to be friends. Tell them that our gifts were always genuine, even with the strings attached. Tell them that we take no pleasure in this victory, and that we truly hope, that we never have to reveal another secret." The screen went dark. Vexaron stood alone on his silent bridge, surrounded by dead technology and defeated officers. Outside, his fleet hung motionless against the stars, 14,000 monuments to the greatest military disaster in galactic history. Not a single shot had been fired, not a single human had been harmed, and not a single member of the coalition would ever look at a human gift the same way again. The 900-year peace was over, but so was the war. And humanity, once again, was laughing. The coalition didn't just lose their fleet. They lost everything. On the Corvathi homeworld, 12 billion citizens woke up to find their atmospheric processors displaying warning messages. The air was still breathable, barely, but the systems that kept their nitrogen-heavy atmosphere at the right mix were demanding updates and authorization codes that no Corvathi could provide. "We have 3 days," the Corvathi Prime Minister announced to his terrified council. 3 days of emergency reserves before the atmosphere becomes toxic. After that, we begin suffocating. "Can't we fix the processors ourselves, rebuild them from scratch?" "It would take years, maybe decades. We don't have the knowledge. We've been using human designs for so long that we've forgotten how our ancestors managed before." Across the room, the Minister of Agriculture was weeping openly. Every farming machine on the planet had stopped working. Every food synthesizer was frozen. Every irrigation system had gone into maintenance mode. 12 billion mouths to feed, and suddenly the Corvathi had no way to feed them. The Prime Minister picked up his communication device, one of the few pieces of technology still functioning, and prepared to contact Earth. It was not a call he had ever imagined making. On the Thessian homeworld, the situation was even worse. The Thessians were a hive species. Everything they did together. Their thoughts flowed through neural networks, connecting every citizen to their queen. For 100 years, those networks had been enhanced by human neural implants, tiny machines in the brain that made their telepathy stronger and clearer. Now those implants were broadcasting. Every thought the queen had was being transmitted on open channels. Her secret fears, her private doubts, her memories of political enemies and hidden resources, all of it was available to anyone with a basic receiver. "Make it stop!" the queen screamed, her many legs thrashing against her throne. "Get these things out of my head!" "We can't, Your Majesty. The implants are woven into your neural tissue. Removing them would kill you." "Then block the transmission." "We've tried. The humans designed the encryption. We can't break it. We can't even understand it." The queen's counselors stood helplessly around her, watching their leader's deepest secrets spill across the galaxy. They were receiving messages from other hives, messages filled with shock and anger. Secrets that had kept the peace between Thessian factions for generations were now public knowledge. "The humans," one counselor whispered, "they didn't just defeat us, they destroyed us. Our entire social structure is based on secrets. Without secrets, we'll tear each other apart." The queen stopped thrashing. She lay still on her throne, her compound eyes staring at nothing. "Contact the humans," she said quietly. "Tell them we surrender. Tell them we'll do whatever they want. Just make it stop." On the Drakari homeworld, the warriors were in chaos. The Drakari had built their entire civilization around combat. Every dispute was settled through battle. Every leader rose to power by defeating their rivals in single combat. Their ceremonial armor was sacred, passed down through generations, maintained with religious devotion, worn only by those who had proven their strength. Now that armor was locked in civilian safety mode. Warriors stood frozen in the middle of combat arenas, unable to move their limbs. Leaders who had ruled through fear and strength suddenly found themselves as helpless as children. The power systems that made Drakari armor the most formidable in the galaxy had simply stopped. "This is impossible," War Chief Krax growled, struggling against his frozen armor. "We built this technology ourselves." "No, War Chief. We designed the shells ourselves, but the power cores, the movement systems, the neural interfaces, all human. We bought them because they were better than anything we could make." "Then rip them out. Replace them with our own technology." "With what?" "Our factories use human machinery. Our engineers were trained on human software. Our raw materials are processed by human-designed refineries. There is nothing we have that doesn't have human fingerprints on it somewhere." Krax finally managed to trigger the emergency release on his armor. It fell away from him, clattering to the ground. Underneath, he was just a Drakari. Large and strong, yes, but mortal, vulnerable. He looked at his bare hands and realized something that chilled his blood. For 100 years, the Drakari had thought themselves the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Now he understood that they had been warriors only because the humans had allowed it. Every battle they won, every enemy they defeated, they had done it using tools that could be taken away at any moment. They had never been strong. They had just been borrowing strength from someone who never needed to show their own. Across 47 worlds, similar scenes played out. Medical facilities demanded software updates before treating patients. Transportation networks ground to a halt. Communication systems worked only when humans allowed them to work. Entire civilizations discovered that they had built their modern lives on a foundation of human technology. And that foundation had just developed cracks. No one died. The humans were very careful about that. Life support systems continued to function. Emergency services remained operational. Medical nanites still healed wounds and cured diseases. But everything else, every convenience, every weapon, every tool of power, belonged to humanity now. A week after the failed attack, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood once again before the Galactic Concord. The assembly hall was much emptier than before. Many species had recalled their representatives in shame. Others were too busy dealing with crises at home to send anyone. But the coalition was there. Every species that had declared war on humanity was present, their ambassadors looking small and defeated in seats that had once seemed so powerful. "Let me begin," Elena said, "by saying something that might surprise you." She paused and let her gaze sweep across the room. "I'm sorry." Whispers rippled through the assembly. "I'm sorry that we had to do this. I'm sorry that 900 years of peace ended in betrayal and revelation. I'm sorry that you now see us differently than you did before." She shook her head. "We never wanted to be feared. We wanted to be friends, partners, family. When our ancestors first entered the galactic community, they could have chosen many paths. They could have tried to conquer. They could have hidden away and hoped to be ignored. Instead, they chose to give." Her voice grew stronger. "Every gift we gave was real. Your engines work better because of human technology. Your hospitals save more lives. Your farms produce more food. Your children live longer, healthier, happier lives than they would have without us. None of that was a lie." She looked directly at Vexaron, who sat silently in the Korvathi section. "But we also knew that someday someone might try to destroy us. We knew that no matter how generous we were, no matter how peaceful, there would always be those who saw our kindness as weakness. So we prepared. We made sure that our gifts came with protection, not for us, but for the peace that benefited everyone." She opened her hands. "Here are our terms. They are not negotiable, but they are also not cruel." A holographic display appeared, showing a simple list. First, all coalition forces will withdraw from human space immediately. Your weapons will be released once you are back in your own territories. Second, each coalition species will pay reparations. Not to us, we don't want your money. The reparations will go to the refugee species that were displaced during the coalition's military buildup. 17 smaller civilizations lost their homes because you needed staging grounds for your invasion. They deserve compensation. Third, every coalition species will sign treaties guaranteeing the sovereignty of all neutral worlds. You threatened dozens of non-aligned species to keep them from warning us about your plans. That stops now. Fourth, and most importantly, we want nothing else. The assembly stirred in confusion. "You're not going to punish us?" someone asked. "Punishment would just breed resentment," Elena replied. "We don't want enemies. We never wanted enemies. What we want is what we've always wanted. Peace, trade, and the chance to be good neighbors." She smiled, and it was a tired smile, full of sadness and hope mixed together. "Your technology will continue to work. Your societies will continue to function. The updates your systems are demanding will be sent within hours of signing the peace treaties. Life will return to normal, with one difference." "What difference?" Vexaron asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You'll know. You'll all know, forever, what we're capable of. You'll know that when you buy human technology, you're trusting us with your civilization, and you'll have to decide whether that trust is worth it." She stepped back from the podium. "We believe it is. We believe that despite everything that's happened, the galaxy is better off with humanity in it. We believe that the peace we helped build for 900 years can continue for 900 more, and 900 after that." Her voice rang through the silent chamber. "But that choice isn't ours to make. It's yours. You can hate us. You can fear us. You can spend the next century trying to build technology without any human influence, trying to cut us out of your lives entirely. We won't stop you. Or you can accept that the universe is complicated. You can accept that sometimes peace requires secrets. You can accept that sometimes trust requires vulnerability. And you can choose to trust us anyway, not because you have to, but because you believe, despite everything, that we mean what we say. She met Vexarin's eyes one last time. You could have been our friends. You still can be. That offer never expires. That door never closes. When you're ready, whenever you're ready, we'll be here. She turned and walked away from the podium, leaving the assembly in stunned silence. Behind her, the coalition representatives sat motionless, processing everything they had heard. Their fleets were broken. Their pride was shattered. Their civilizations hung on the edge of chaos. But they were alive. And the species they had tried to destroy was offering them friendship instead of revenge. It was not the ending any of them had expected. But perhaps a few of them began to think it was the ending they deserved. One by one, delegates began rising to sign the peace treaties. The war was over. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere on Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the signatures appear on her screen, and allowed herself a small smile. 900 years, she whispered to herself. 23 generations, and we never had to kill anyone. It wasn't quite the same as innocence, but it was close enough. 50 years had passed since the day the galaxy learned humanity's secret. The memorial world of Theseus 7 was beautiful in the autumn. Twin suns cast golden light across rolling hills covered in purple vegetation. In the valleys below, cities of crystal and stone rose toward the sky, filled with beings from 100 different species, living and working together. It had been a battlefield once. 50 years ago, before the failed war, Theseus 7 was a military staging ground where coalition forces gathered to plan humanity's destruction. Now, it was a symbol of something else entirely. Young Korvathi students walked along the memorial paths, their chitinous plates catching the sunlight. Beside them walked human classmates, Thessian companions, even a few Drakari younglings who towered over everyone else, despite their youth. They were studying the great mistake, the war that never was, the day that changed everything. I don't understand, a young Korvathi named Vexkari said, studying a holographic display that showed the frozen coalition fleet. Why did our grandparents think they could win? Didn't they know about the human technology? Her human friend, a boy named Marcus, shrugged. They knew humans made good technology. They just didn't think about what that meant. They saw us as merchants and scientists, not warriors. It never occurred to them that maybe there was a reason we didn't need to be warriors. But it's so obvious now. Vexkari's plates clicked in confusion, the same gesture her great-grandfather had made, though she would never know it. Everyone learns about it in school. Human technology has loyalty protocols. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows now, said their teacher, an elderly Thessian who had lived through the war. But back then, the galaxy was different. People trusted their own strength. They didn't think about where that strength came from. She led the students to a statue at the center of the memorial. It showed two figures facing each other, a Korvathi warrior in full battle armor, and a human woman in simple diplomatic robes. The Korvathi's weapons were powered down, falling from his hands. The human's arms were open, offering embrace rather than attack. The monument to the last surrender, the teacher explained. It represents the moment when Supreme Commander Vexaron signed the peace treaties. The artist was a Korvathi, who lost his father in the chaos after the fleet failed. Not to human weapons, but to a reactor accident caused by panicked crew members. He created this statue to remind his people that the humans never wanted anyone to die. Vexkari stared up at the Korvathi warrior in the statue. There was something familiar about him, though she couldn't quite place it. He looks sad, she said. He was. The The records show that Vexaron lived for another 30 years after the war. He spent most of that time working with human diplomats to rebuild trust between species. He said once that his greatest shame wasn't trying to destroy humanity. It was how long it took him to understand why he was wrong. The students moved on to the next exhibit, but Vex Carey lingered by the statue. Something the teacher had said was bothering her. Vexaron, she whispered to herself. Vex Carey. Vex. Marcus had noticed her falling behind. He walked back and stood beside her, looking up at the statue. You okay? I think he might have been my great-great-grandfather. Then he put his hand on her arm, a gesture of friendship that would have been unthinkable between their species 50 years ago. Does that bother you? I don't know. Vex Carey's plates shifted in a complex pattern. My whole life, I've learned that what he did was wrong, that the war was stupid and pointless. But he's also my ancestor. He's part of who I am. Maybe that's okay, Marcus said. My great-grandmother was one of the engineers who designed the loyalty protocols. She spent her whole life carrying a secret that could have saved billions of lives, or gotten everyone she loved killed if it came out too early. She told me once that she never slept well, not for 90 years, because she always wondered if there was a better way. He looked up at the statue's human figure. She said the worst part wasn't the secret. It was knowing that other species would never completely trust humans again. She said, we traded our innocence for peace, and she was never sure it was worth it. Vex Carey considered this. My family never talks about the war. I had to learn about Vexaran from history classes. I think they're ashamed. My family talks about it all the time. They're proud of what they did, but also, he searched for the right word. Also guilty, I think. Like they won something important, but lost something else. They stood together in silence, two children of former enemies, trying to understand the choices their ancestors had made. The annual Peace Day celebration began as the sun started to set. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, now in her 90s, kept alive by the same nanite technology that had once been humanity's secret weapon. She stood on a floating platform above a crowd of millions, her image broadcast to trillions more across the galaxy. 50 years ago, she began, your grandparents tried to destroy us. The crowd was silent. This was not the gentle diplomatic speech they had expected. They gathered the largest fleet in galactic history. They declared our extinction. They dreamed of burning our worlds and scattering our people to the void. Elena's old eyes swept across the assembled masses. They failed. Not because we were stronger in the traditional sense. We weren't. Not because we had bigger weapons or more soldiers. We had none. They failed because 900 years before, our ancestors had looked at a galaxy full of endless war and decided there had to be a better way. She lifted her hands, and holographic images appeared around her. Human scientists sharing technology with alien colleagues. Human doctors treating patients of every species. Human teachers in classrooms full of students with scales and plates and tentacles and wings. We chose to make ourselves necessary. We chose to give instead of take. We chose to build a foundation that everyone could stand on, knowing that if anyone ever tried to tear us down, they would find themselves standing on nothing at all. The images shifted, showing the failed attack. Frozen ships, panicked crews, weapons that wouldn't fire. Some call what we did manipulative, deceptive, a betrayal of trust. Elena nodded slowly. They're right. It was all of those things. We lied to the galaxy for 900 years. We pretended to be harmless, while building the most comprehensive defense system in history. We gave you gifts with strings attached, and smiled while you thanked us for them. The crowd stirred uncomfortably. This was not the hero narrative they had grown up with. What we did was necessary, but that doesn't make it right. We took away your freedom to make informed choices. We made you dependent on us without your knowledge or consent. We played gods with the fate of civilizations. She paused. But I want you to consider the alternative. In the 1,000 years before humans joined the galaxy, there were 47 major wars. Billions of sentient beings died. Entire species went extinct. Worlds that should have been gardens became graveyards. Her voice grew stronger. In the 900 years after we joined, there was one attempted war. It lasted approximately 6 hours. No one died. And in the 50 years since, there has been no war at all. The longest period of peace in galactic history. She spread her arms wide. We sacrificed our innocence so that your children can grow up without fear. We made ourselves monsters, manipulators, deceivers, the species that tricked the galaxy, so that you would never have to know what it felt like to watch your world burn. The holographic display showed the memorial world they stood on, transformed from battlefield to paradise. And if we had to do it again, we would, without hesitation, without regret, because we looked at a galaxy that had accepted war as normal, destruction as inevitable, and we decided that was unacceptable. We decided that peace was worth any price, even our own souls. She lowered her arms. So here we stand. The galaxy knows our secret now. You know what we're capable of. You know that every piece of human technology could turn against you if we wished it. You know that we are not and have never been the harmless merchants and scientists we pretended to be. Her voice softened. You could hate us. You could fear us. You could spend the next century trying to escape our influence, building civilizations that don't depend on us at all. Some species are doing exactly that, and we don't blame them. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. She smiled, and it was a smile that had aged from confident to wise, from sharp to gentle. But most of you are still here. Most of you still trade with us, work with us, live beside us. Most of you have chosen to believe that despite everything, humanity meant what it said, that our gifts were always genuine, even with the strings attached, that our friendship was always real, even though we were never truly harmless. Elena looked out at the crowd, at the Korvathi and Thessians and Drakkari standing beside humans, at the children playing together regardless of species, at the old enemies who had become new friends. That gives me hope. That makes me believe that maybe someday we can earn your trust fully. Not through secrets and manipulation, but through honesty. Through proving, day after day and year after year, that we are who we say we are. She took a deep breath. My generation built the trap. Your generation survived it. But your children, she pointed at the young ones in the crowd, they get to build something new, something we never could. They get to build trust that isn't based on necessity or fear. They get to prove that the galaxy can choose peace, not because they're afraid of humans, but because they actually believe in it. She stepped back from the platform. The 900-year peace is over. The war is over. Now the real work begins. As Elena's speech ended, the crowd began to disperse. But in the gathering darkness, Vexkari found herself standing beside her human friend one more time. Do you believe it? Do you believe the galaxy can really change? Marcus watched the lights of the memorial city beginning to glow against the evening sky. I don't know, he admitted, but I want to try. Don't you? Vexkari's plates shifted into the pattern that meant agreement among her people. Yes, she said, I do. Above them, the stars came out one by one, the same stars that had watched countless wars, countless failures, countless species rise and fall across millions of years. But tonight, they watched something different. They watched children of enemies walking home together. They watched the beginning of something new. And somewhere, somehow, the stars seemed to approve.